All right, now you had made your guess that the square root of 22 was closer to 5 squared than it was to 4 squared. So what I want you to do right now is, you know that this is about the halfway point of between 4 and 5, and I want you to go ahead and take a moment and guess as to what you think our decimal estimation for the square root of 22 is. And pause. Now, after you have made your guess, I'm willing to bet you that some of you have probably said, it's probably around 4.6 or it's going to be about 4.7. And for some of you, if you're being a little skeptical, you're like, oh, come on, this can't be right. We're not that close. Well, let's go ahead and take a look at the Google machine. So if you go ahead and type in square root of 22, and the wonderful world of the Google machine will tell us that the irrational number for square root of 22 is 4.69. And we had made a decimal estimation of 4.6 or 4.7. So notice, we're pretty much spot on, okay? So now, example 3, I want you to pause and completely try on your own. And now that you have come back, let's check to see how you guys have done. Now, we're looking at estimating the value of 103. So remember, the first thing we have to do is go back to our perfect square list and figure out where about 103 is. And 103 is in between 10 squared and 11 squared. So we go back to our problem, and we say that 103 is about between 10 squared and 11 squared, which we said was between 100 and 121. Okay, now 103, the square root of 103 is going to be posted right about here. Okay, and as we notice from our other examples, which one is it closer to, the 10 squared or the 11 squared? Oh, it's way closer to the 10 squared. And your next guess is, well, 103. It's really close to about 10, 10.1, 10.2. So I would accept a couple answers. I would accept 10.1, or I would also accept 10.2 as your decimal estimation. And once again, if we decide to go back, what is the square root of 103? And we end up with 10.14, which is right smack dab in between our two guesses. So thus far, we're doing pretty good. Example 4. Which of the following square roots is best represented by point A? Now remember, these are square roots of numbers, okay? So I want you guys to take a moment. Square root of something gives me 3. So the square root of something gives me 3. What is the perfect square that went with that? I'm really hoping you thought that it was 9. And then the perfect square for the square root that gives me 4, I'm hoping you would say 16. Now that we have kind of our starting point and our ending point, I want you to take a moment and pause here, and I want you to go ahead and guess as to what choice you think dot A is. And now that you have come back, you'll notice that, well, we have 9 and we have 16. Well, square root of 7 is like over here somewhere, so that one's off. Square root of 8 is still over on this side, so that one's off, okay? Now we have a couple other choices. We have square root of 12 and square root of 15. Well, 12 would probably put us somewhere right here. So we're going to go ahead and say that our answer for this particular problem is C. And if we go and take a look once again at our Google machine, square root of 15 is going to give us 3.87. And if we take a look at our worksheet that we've done, 3.87 is right about where we need to be. Now for the last examples, kiddos, I want you to complete example 5, example 6, and example 7 completely on your own. Go ahead and pause now. Example 5, which of the following would be the best estimate of square root of 198? Now some of you might start to be getting good and you can do it without a number line. I'll still do it with a number line. So we have our number line here, and we have square root of 198. We go back to the beginning once again. We check our list. Oh, square root of 198 is not up here. I didn't put up 14 squared or 15 squared. So let's go ahead and take a look. And 14 squared is going to be our starting point. And 14 squared gives us 196. Okay, and then we have 15 squared, which is going to give us 225. And we're asking for the square root of 198, which is going to be graphed, I'll go ahead and use purple, right about here. Okay, now if you take a moment and look at all your choices, which one of these choices is going to be your best decimal estimation for the square root of 198? Well, that dot certainly is not in the middle. It is certainly not past the 15 mark, and it is definitely not right on the 15 mark right here, which leaves us with our only option as choice A. Example number 6. Between which two whole numbers would the following square roots lie? Now in this one, I'm just simply asking you guys to go ahead and take a guess as to what you think it would be. Now I want you to try and think of all these perfect squares that we have practiced today or yesterday in school on Monday. Okay, now our first one is the square root of 90. Well, take a moment and look. 90, we have a perfect square of 9, which gives us 81, a perfect square of 10, which gives us 100. So I would have to say that 90 is in between 9 and 10. Okay, so we have 9 and 10 for the square root of 90. 175, I would say, is in between 13 and 14. And negative square root of 12, I would say, is going to be in between 3 and 4. Now, please keep in mind, I understand this is a negative there. We really don't pay attention to that because we're focusing on the square root. The negative sign happens after the square root, so please keep that in mind. The final problem that we're going to be working on, Rebecca brought a square table for her kitchen. The area of the table's surface is 65 square feet. What is the approximate length of one side of the table? Once again, going back to my number line, square root of 65. So I'm going to go ahead and think of some perfect squares that I can use. I'm going to use the number 64 as well as the number 81. Number 64 gives us, a square root of 64 gives us 8 squared. And square root of 91 gives us 9 squared. And using my red, I'm going to go ahead and plot square root 65, which is going to be right about here. And based on our decimal estimation, it's obviously way closer to the 8, so it's going to be 8 point something. We know this is about our halfway point, so we know it's going to be less than 8.5. And I'm going to go ahead and make the guess that it's going to be about 8.1 feet. Okay, 8.1 feet. And then once again, if you don't believe me, well, let's take a look. Square root of 65 gives us 8.06. So if we round it up to the nearest tenth, then we're going to go ahead and have the 8.1. So we were pretty darn close. Okay. Once you have fully completed this video, I also want you to do the conclusion section at the bottom of this. Please do keep in mind that if you do not finish any of this, it is homework. I am requiring you to finish watching the video at home. Now, when you finish taking your notes, what I want you to do is to go and see our guest teacher, and our guest teacher is going to give you a little puzzle here. And this is your starting point. I know it's sideways, but I can't turn it around, unfortunately. What you're basically going to do is you're going to start with this square root 15, and using some of our strategies, you're going to start and fill in where you think the decimal estimation would be. And you're going to follow the path along whichever choice all the way until you get to the finish. And last but not least, homework tonight. Homework is 2 pages for you guys. It's going to be page 2 and page 3, and I will try my very best to get the answers online for you guys. Otherwise, I will see you in class on Wednesday.